Welcome to the Big Meat Kickoff. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Wednesday, April 23rd, 11:30 in the East, 8:30 in the West. I don't know what time it is in Hawaii or Guam or anywhere like that, but that doesn't matter. We are here on a Wednesday afternoon, talk a little Ohio State, maybe a little Wrestlemania, maybe some pop culture things. Andor just dropped the first 3 episodes of that. No spoilers. We won't get too far into any of that. I know that a lot of people have not had a chance to watch that with NHL and NBA playoffs on television and everything else. It's been a little bit of an irregular schedule for me, and I do apologize for that. I have to do better, as I've explained to anybody that will listen. If I don't feel like I have anything to say, are we just going to go through the motions? But I guess with a live show, you guys dictate really what we talk about. So I'm just answering questions. So I need to be better about that. So I do apologize. I will start to do the hellos here in a second as we get them in. Not looking to do a particularly long show. I scheduled this show not really thinking about the date or anything. I know a lot of people are over watching the Mark Rogers show right now. Tony Gerdeman is on that right now, along with good friend Steve Hellwagon and, of course, Mark Rogers. Didn't think about that. Don't want to compete against that show. I have a conference call that I have to be on at the time I normally would do my show. So I just kind of wanted to throw something into the mix so we would do this because that forces me to do the show. I'm not going to blow off a show. I'll tell you that. Chocolate Chip Scoochie says, "What's up? What's up to you, Chocolate Chip? Hope you're doing well." Mika Hanna, good friend of the show. Good morning, Kevin. Have you seen any of my shows yet? My birthday was the 19th. Well, let's go in reverse order and happy birthday. What are you, 25? 26? You always shoot low with the ladies on there. I've not watched anybody's show of anything. Just a lot going on. It has been very difficult to engage in things. Mika says 31, so there you go. I'll say 25 then. That always makes everybody happy. So, I'm appreciative of everybody who comes out and supports the show, supports the channel. YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle for those of you who are watching us. Maybe those of you who are listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform. Be sure to check us out at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com as well. I know that we have had a lot of people come from the podcast over to the website and have been very happy with everything there. We got a big month coming up here in May. Southern Swing is coming up. I do not have a date, so it's not a matter of me playing dumb, of being like, I don't know exactly when it starts. I just legitimately don't know when it starts. Mark gets a car and says, we're going, and I have like a half hour to get all my junk put in bags and go. So that's coming up in May. Camps are going on, getting ready for, a lot of things. So, keep it locked in. This is a really good time to get on board. So I want everybody to do that. Mika says she sent me the link, and I do. I've gotten the emails. You can generally tell, and Matt, I will get to your question in a second. You can generally tell my frame of mind by how many unread emails I have in my email box, especially according to my phone. I don't get the same number, and I get all the same emails, and I have like 4 or 5 of them that feed to my phone, feed to my Outlook. I probably have about 3,500 unread emails right now, which means that maybe I'm not exactly of my right mind at the moment. There's just a lot going on, but we'll get to that. Matt, will we be fine without a backup long snapper? Lost him to the portal today. Well, I know that they lost Morrow Evans. Is that who we're talking about? Because John Furlman did a really solid job. The transfer from Arizona State, Morrow Evans, was part of the same recruiting class as James Peoples and Peyton Pierce. I'm just remembering the crew when I was out in San Antonio a couple of years ago. That was the Morrow Evans class. I mean, you're going to go out and have a backup. I mean, whether or not your guy is on scholarship or not scholarship, and those lines are going to get blurred these days with movement toward 105. And Brian, if you're watching, I understand that nobody's going to 105. I get that. But you're not stuck at 85. You're not stuck at 85. If you want to go to 87 or 89 or 90 and, stash somebody there and put them on, on some sort of, financial aid or whatever, you have the options to do that. So no, I mean, we're not going to sit there and hear portal news about, oh my God, Ohio State went out and picked up a backup long snapper out of the portal here like in a week. That's probably not the way it's going to go. But it's almost best if you don't know who your long snapper is, because if you're not talking about him, he hasn't done anything wrong. If you know who he is, that's problematic. I mean, it's kind of like with most specialists. And I have, through the years, had an opportunity to talk with a lot of specialists as they come through Ohio State, kicker, punter, snapper, whatever. And so I get I get where they're coming from. I totally get where they're coming from. If you don't want to be anonymous, you're going to go play a different position, because that is just kind of an anonymous position. So I wouldn't be concerned, Matt. I wouldn't be concerned. Let's jump through here. Another one from Matt. Won't miss TC Caffey. Just bad luck on injuries, but the room is loaded. It really is loaded. And, TC Caffey, you feel terrible that he was injured all last season. I mean, he had, was it in the Toledo game that he had that great run? I'm not even sure off the top of my head. And everybody's like, well, this guy is, he's a scholarship level back. And he is a scholarship level back. And, for somebody who, again, back to the 105, and I don't know the roadmap exactly. They have not put, the personnel department really in front of us. And I don't know what they can say in terms of on the record or not, because we're dealing with a lot of new territory here. So I don't know. They've never really been forthcoming about being like, well, this guy's on scholarship and this guy's not. That's just not what happens. I mean, maybe it's some smaller schools that, they're going to follow the rules, but, we don't necessarily get that whole roadmap. But to Matt's point, obviously you have James Peoples, obviously you have CJ Donaldson, and then you got Bo Jackson, you got Isaiah West, you got Turbo Rogers. They are going. Oh, and Sam Williams-Dixon, of course. So they're in. They got a lot of depth, and I remember years where they have brought like 5 scholarship backs. Oh, they're going to play all 5 of these scholarship backs, and then for like a week or two, they may split the carries, and a bunch of guys get 4 or 5 or 8, and like the leader gets like 12. And then you just see the room start to wear down. Well, we saw this past season what 16 games meant, and really having the division of responsibilities between Trevion and Quinshon. And, they were very close in the number of yards and carries and everything else that they had. So you don't have to go 4 deep. You don't have to go 5 deep necessarily. I think that number 3 back position is going to be important, though. Especially dependent upon the quarterback situation. Julian Sayin does have some legs, but that's not necessarily what you want him out there doing, is maybe the smallest of your quarterbacks. Lincoln has some legs, but are you going to put a first-year quarterback out in harm's way running it as much? Now, we're not talking about JT Barrett here. We're not talking about Troy Smith here. We're talking about today. We're talking about 2025. I would probably rather put some of those carries in the hands of my number 3 back. And again, the Q run is going to be more effective on 3rd and 2 or whatever. I'm probably not bringing in my 3rd down back or my number 3 back in those situations. But I think that we will see a good amount of carries for Bo Jackson. I don't know what the over-under is yet. Tom and Tony haven't set one. So I'm not going to say I'm taking the over no matter what it is, because it could be like a ridiculously high number. But most numbers that could be set for Bo Jackson, I'm going to take the over. I just think that it's important to get him his carries. CJ Donaldson is a 1-year rental. This is James Peoples' number 2 year. So 2026 will be his 3rd year, which would be his contract year, more or less. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to trot out Bo Jackson as your 1A, with him having, let's say it's a comparable season and they play 16 games and everything else, and he picks up 125, 140 carries over the course of the year. Wouldn't that be nice in terms of not having to break in somebody new? And then you still have the rest of the backs in there who have had things sprinkled in there, whether or not it's Isaiah West stepping up next year, or Sam Williams-Dixon, or Turbo Rogers. And Turbo Rogers, he's not a 15, 17 carry a back guy. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife in my book. I think, I hate doing comps. I really hate doing comps. I'm going to say the way that I would want to use him, that he's not him, but I would, a Curtis Samuel type or something like that. I think that would be, very important. Let me keep scrolling through here. Mika, need your help renewing my membership sometime. That's cool. Shoot me an email. I promise I'll look at it. It won't get lost in the 3,500. Got to get people signed up for Buckeye Huddle, so I gotta look at those. It's a lot easier than going through and trying to get through everything else and watch a 45-minute podcast. 'Cause I don't want to watch like 2 minutes of it and be like, well, I'm distracted now, and run off. So I'm trying to do the best I can there. Gary K, good morning, Kevin. Hope you had a nice Easter with the family. It was Easter. I had a steak, and that was kind of about it. Oh, and I mowed the lawn. That was the big accomplishment. Did not make it to church in the morning. Woke up and had 15 minutes to make the late service, and I was like, well, that's not happening. So went out and I mowed the lawn and cooked a steak, and that's what I did. Gary K, any new updates on the recruiting front for the team? Well, of course. I mean, there's still a lot going on now. Could they be getting a kid in the next minute? I don't have that on my radar. I have several players that I think that they're sitting in good position with. I think that let me jump here to what Mika has, because it dovetails there, talking about Portal DT and Bo Atkinson. We'll start with Bo Atkinson, the defensive end from North Carolina. I feel very good there. At Buckeye Huddle, we don't do a crystal ball, future cast, RPM, whatever. But if we did something like that, I would have Atkinson going to Ohio State. He visited earlier in the week. It was a tremendous visit. The thing is that with even if you're just a 1-year player at a college, that you're just you're 19 instead of 18. You've already gone through a recruiting process. You're not necessarily looking to drag it out, but I think a lot of guys too would like to prevent being a 4-time portal guy. So make sure you're doing your due diligence and you make the right decision. You do what fits for you. I mean, obviously, to the first half of Mika's point about defensive tackle, that one's going to be a little bit more challenging. And I've said this, and I will continue to say this. The second portal is always difficult. And why is that? Well, this is post-spring. So you have a couple of different types of players in the portal, like 3. And at first you got the guy who got beat out for his position. So is that necessarily, if you're a top 5 national recruiting program, are you looking to get somebody who might be 40th in the nation? Are you looking to get somebody that couldn't make the starting lineup there? The next type of player you have is the smaller division type of player who blew up in the spring, maybe has already blown up, but really blew up in the spring as well. It's like, I can go somewhere more football prestigious. And then I think there's the third group out there that is maybe the bigger name players who, after spring, just sit there and it's like, I'm betting on myself and I'm going to, I'm going to take a swing at this. I'm going to take a swing and see what happens there. Now, I think Bo Atkinson kind of falls into the third group. What did Josh Simmons, what group did he fall into? He was a second portal window guy, and he came in and everybody was just super unimpressed when looking at his PFF, Pro Football Focus numbers. Oh, he's not going to get it done. And first couple games of his Ohio State career, I think he would be the first one to admit there was a transition process. It was different playing at Ohio State from San Diego State. But then things really started to work with him. And, there are a lot of people out there that are still going to be very critical of Justin Fry, but Justin Fry did a tremendous job of developing Josh Simmons. And Simmons, going into his senior year, his final year, 24, was considered to be like a all Big Ten caliber type of player. And then he gets hurt at Oregon, and now he's being mocked late 1, early 2 in the draft. So sometimes those things do work out. Sometimes they do work out when you're going into the portal to get somebody. But the reason I say this is defensive tackle is a position that nobody has enough of. Ohio State was close to having enough of them last year. Close. They probably still would have taken 2 more, honestly. So if everybody's looking for them and there are very few out there that are difference makers, you need to sit there and figure out what's the motivation. And that's not us talking these guys. That's not saying, well, he's just a bad dude because he's chasing bag. Some dudes are going to be chasing bag. They were somewhere where, they got, $10,000 and a box of Pokemon cards for NIL. And that's it. And now they could get, $300,000, $400,000 or whatever. Because the thing is that you can really screw up a locker room. If you bring in a 1-year rental and you pay him $500 large and your starters are making $300 large, how do you, you're going to have to renegotiate with your starters, I would think. These kids aren't going to keep their mouth shut and be like, well, I'm not going to tell you what I'm making. I got $500,000 in a Charger and an apartment. So you need to make sure you have to be active in the portal. It's not that Ohio State has been inactive. You've got to be active in the portal, but you've also got to do the best job possible of keeping harmony in the locker room and things of that nature. Like David Sanders, we'll go back to the last recruiting cycle. And Ohio State easily could have matched Tennessee's number. Easily. But again, at that point, you're bringing in a true freshman who is unproven at this level. David Sanders is a tremendous player. He's a tremendous kid, and I really like his family too. So wish him nothing but the best. But it's, there's a lot to it. So Ohio State misses out on the Syracuse defensive tackle, freshman All-American. He goes to Texas. Pretty much every defensive tackle this offcycle has gone to Texas. I think they've signed like 5 of them, including Hero Kanu. People are like, well, could Hero Kanu come back? Could he be pissed off because the room suddenly went from being advantageous to crowded? And anything's possible, I guess. Best to get to step in. The portal's closing soon. I guess the basketball portal is closed. The football portal is the 25th. I think I posted something incorrect on the board. I'll have to check that later. I know the basketball portal is closed. And Tom Orr sent something in our internal chat saying that the football portal is till the 25th. So there could still be things there. With that being said, that's only to enter the portal. You do not have to exit the portal by the 25th. We're not going to know everybody in the portal's decision by the 25th. That's just a deadline to get into the portal. You can sit there and exit on the 28th or the 30th or May 2nd. At some point, you're going to want to kind of know where you're going. You're going to want to be able to get there for summer workouts and things of that nature. So nobody's going to really drag it on. But, as for recruiting updates, keep an eye on PJ Dean. Keep an eye on PJ Dean. I think that is the player that I am watching the closest right now in terms of a high school player. The local running back Favor. I think I think if given the green light, I think he'd be committed right now. I don't know for sure how many backs they're going to take. That's going to be an interesting question, and that'll be something that Mark and I will definitely discuss while we're on Southern Swing. We will not be able to do like nightly wrap-up shows with the amount of travel and driving we're going to do. But what I may do is I may throw a listener questions, or we may just do a live. We may do a live on the road. Could be at a weird hour. I mean, not like at 2 a.m. or anything. I mean, it could be on a Saturday because we don't have any players to talk to on that day or something like that. But we're going to try to expand as much of the coverage that we can on Southern Swing. But I do know that there are times that we go into Southern Swing with 15 ideas and we execute like 7 of them because it's just such an exhausting trip. Here we go, Steve, my guy Noon. Hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. Joining us from Twitter/X. Be sure to join us on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle as well to get into the chat. Super chats get you to the front of the line. I know we're not necessarily in super chat season. That's more in football season. I get it, but we do love them any time of the year. So there you go. Matt says, what happens to our starting quarterback? What happens when our starting quarterback gets hurt? Then what? Lincoln. Well, unless they go out and like bring somebody in quickly. I mean, it's a 3-man quarterback room. I mean, I could see them bringing in a 4th scholarship guy, kind of in a Gunnar Hoke, Chris Chugginoff type of way. The kid from Oregon State. I could see a way that they do that just to fill out the ranks, but we don't know if we don't know if Julian is the starter yet officially. So we'll just say if Julian is the starter, I would assume Lincoln's going to be the 2. If Lincoln's the starter, I'm assuming Julian's going to be the 2. Not a slight on Tavian St. Clair. Tavian St. Clair has been in college for almost 5 months, but has not played a single down of college football yet. Has gone through spring ball, has looked really good at times, has looked like a true freshman at times, has looked like a kid who should probably still be in high school at times. And that's everybody. That's all of them. Maybe not Jeremiah Smith. I mean, I think that's fair to say. But Jeremiah Smith is an alien as well. So if true freshman Tavian St. Clair is your number 2, I think that means that either it's one of 2 things. You've done screwed up in putting your quarterback room together, and your room gets screwed up for you too with early departures, transfers, everything else. Aaron Nolan to South Carolina, Devin Brown to Cal. Things happen. I mean, these players have to take care of themselves. But either that's happened or Tavian St. Clair is significantly better than advertised. But if Julian is the 1 and Tavian is the 2, what the heck is Lincoln sticking around for? I mean, so I just, I'm not to sit there and I'm not to say that sometimes these decisions have some non-football things tied into them, but there is a little bit of that in there as well. There has to be, because you don't want to lose your room. You are having to manage your roster. You do not have a taxi squad. You cannot pull a trade in the middle of the season. While Tennessee and UCLA traded their quarterbacks, you can't do that during the season. That is not part of it. You cannot give them, 2 freshmen and cap relief. I mean, that's just not how it works. And I know nobody's saying that's how it works, but you need to make sure that you have your dominoes stacked in the right way, or it's all coming down. Jerry's asking if we've got to Wrestlemania talk yet. No, we will get to that here in a minute. I do have the card pulled up. We will get to that, here at the end of the show. Again, certainly not going 90 minutes. I was like, oh, we'll go 30. Well, we've already gone 24. So we're going to go a little bit longer than 30. That's the great thing about the live show. I don't have to prepare a ton. I did watch both nights of WrestleMania. So I'm not just reading it off of a card and it's like, Jey Uso. I mean, I watched every minute of the actual cards. I didn't watch any of the pre-show. I think I watched like 20 minutes of the post-show on night 1 and none of it on night 2. So there you go. Steve, you may have covered this, but why is defensive line recruiting like pulling teeth with LJ? It's funny because everything is perspective. I was going to say 5 years ago, but 5 years ago is the COVID year, and that's just alien year. 6 years, 7 years ago, I think LJ was considered like the strongest recruiter on the team in a lot of ways. I mean, you sit there and you put Hartline in the mix, obviously, but OG Walt wasn't that. Matty G wasn't there. I mean, there was, we're not that far removed from LJ. I think the biggest thing with LJ has been the close. Closing in on the final month, losing out on like a Damon Wilson or somebody like that, losing out on Keon Keeley. Before that, it never really was the issue. I mean, anything that happened all the way back to like 2 months till signing day was all hunky-dory. I do think that people are being very critical. I'm not judging you. Are being very critical of how his portal recruiting is going in terms of fulfilling the needs at D-tackle. Let's not forget they went out and they got Logan George out of 1AA. And by all accounts, for a player who isn't very big, but neither is Caden Curry, he, real heavy hands, hard to block him. I think he's somebody who could have some impact. But not being able to go out and get that D tackle has gotten to people. And you know what? I do think at some point you measure. All right, Larry is, widely, largely, almost universally considered to be the GOAT on this one side of defensive line recruitment. And then on this other side, he's in his mid-70s? He's being recruited against heavily due to his age. Ohio State is being recruited against heavily due to, they're going to have to make a change at that position at some point. In a perfect world, and I'm not Ryan Day, obviously, you're going to have to come to a decision at some point, whether it's Larry or collaboration or whatever. Look, you can still develop players, but we may at some point need to make a change to get a younger guy out on the road. Now, that's not saying that Larry. I have seen some lazy recruiters. Larry's not a lazy recruiter. But, 70-something is 70-something. And hell, I'm 50-something, and I need to take a nap at least twice a week. So then again, I also don't have a gym attached to my office, which is my house, and all these things to where, eat meals that are planned out by a dietitian and everything else. I mean, I would be at least 5% healthier if I had all of that, maybe 6. So I don't know. I get your point, Steve. I don't think we're that far removed from when he was one of the strongest. What happens when, you're in a room of average height people and you're 6'1" and you're like, I'm towering over everybody. And then you bring in a couple of 6'6"ers, and then you suddenly aren't the tall one anymore. I think he's just been surrounded by guys that are certainly younger. Hartline's younger. OG Walt's younger. I mean, so something to monitor, but we're not going to see a change now at this point. It's April 23rd. This is what it's going to be for another year, barring, catastrophe. Matt says, won't be surprised to hear that Tyler Atkinson commits by the weekend. I like Tyler Atkinson, but you're Bo. I'm sorry, Bo Atkinson. I'm thinking Tyler. I was like, I don't know. I think Ohio State has a better shot at Deuce Gerald's down there. But yeah, Bo Atkinson's, I think I feel pretty comfortable in that one. To say that maybe a story on him could be ready wouldn't be a falsehood. Mika, I love Jameer Perez out of Glenville. Been waiting for us to offer. So glad we did. Yeah, I mean, they got to do a good job of, evaluating everybody, because the thing is, you have to be right at Glenville. You can't offer a kid and then be like, well, we're just kidding. While there is a very great relationship between the Tarblooders and Ted Ginn Sr. and Ohio State, jerk a kid around there and see what happens. So you have to be right. You have to be right with anybody in state, but with, the Pickerington schools, with some of the big Cincinnati schools, certainly with Cleveland, Glenville, you better be right, because if not, you're just going to have to sign the kid and sit there and sit with them for a year or two, because you cannot run a kid off like that, ghost him in recruiting. You've got to be right. Neil Harris, good afternoon. Good after Kevin Noon. Thank you, Neil Patrick Harris. I'm sure you've never heard that one before. I'm so witty. I'm sure you've never heard that one before. Atkinson, 6'6", 265, and fast on takeoff and great hands. I mean, that's there. I have a friend, good friend, who texts me a lot, and by his own admission can be a little reactionary at times. And I try not to get upset with him. Sometimes I get it like 5 minutes after the Michigan game. I want to throw my phone against a wall. I'm like, I'm busy right now. But he's, very, the potential of signing Atkinson doesn't mean nearly as much as missing out on the Syracuse kid. Doesn't mean nearly as much as missing out on this other kid or whatever. And, I get it. And it's fandom. And I lose track of that sometimes. This is my job. I do this for a living. I don't necessarily, it's been a long time since I have gone, God, when was the last time? The last time I went to an Ohio State game as non-working media would have been 2005, Illinois, I think. Don't check me out. I know it was an Illinois game. And it would have been either 04 or 05. And I think it was 05 based on who I went to the game with. So 20 years since I've been to a game as a non-working member of the media. So I lose sight of, emotions run high. They, passions run hot and sorrow runs cold. And I do forget that. So sometimes it's a good teaching lesson for myself. Still been in this industry forever. So, I did my internship in 1994, and it pretty much worked almost the entire time in this industry in one way, shape, or form. I need to be reminded of that. But yeah, they got to get the D tackles, at least one. But Bo Atkinson would be a huge get. Mika, when do camps start? I'll tell you, I have it in my phone. I just saw a graphic earlier today, but I wasn't paying attention. The first camp is June 5th. So there you go. June 5th is your first Ohio State camp. I think they've got 2 7-on-7 camps. I think they've got 5 or 6 one-day camps, and then they have some youth camps. We don't generally cover the youth camps just because I'm really not ready to start writing about a 7th grader. I'm just not. It's funny because I will randomly get recruits, not Ohio State recruits, just football playing kids who will follow me out of the blue and getting like class of 2031, class of 2032. I mean, and I'm like, damn, kid, you're like in 5th grade. And then I look at him, I'm like, you're bigger than me than when I was a sophomore in high school. So it's crazy. Matt says that Ohio State won't chase the money men. Largely yes, but not total yes. Ohio State is not immune to paying NIL money to land players. Now, if you talk to our friends up north who talk about Ohio State buying a team, I mean, that's just laughable and a falsehood and just utter bullshit. But Ohio State will get into the NIL mix, but if it really becomes a true bidding war, I'm going to always take the field over Ohio State. Finite amount of money. You want to sit. There's just a lot of things that go into play there. I mean, we haven't even talked about the Nico situation, and maybe I go live again at the end of the week to answer a lot of other questions, talk about a lot of other things, because I do want to talk about Wrestlemania when we get to the end. We're almost to the end of the current questions I have. I have teased on social media and everything else that we talk a little Wrestlemania, so we're gonna do a little bit of that. Wingman Ted says hello. So there you go. Hello, Wingman Ted, one of the great friends of the show. I've seen you on a million of our chats, and we really appreciate it. Matt says J.J. Smith was offered 4.5 a year, turned it down. True Buckeye. J.J. Smith is an alien, but whether or not that's the number Miami really offered, I don't necessarily know that for a fact. I'm always very careful to get too involved in numbers that I can't, corroborate. But JJ Smith is going to Miami is not a great situation still. Do they have a quarterback that can throw it to him? Now people say, well, does Ohio State? Well, I think Ohio State is certainly in a better situation for that. Ohio State's in a better situation for a lot of success. And the reality is that it's probably best for most college players to experience the world a little bit before they get into the, into the muck that can be the NFL. So, JJ, to his credit, has a great head on his shoulders, has people around him that have his best interests in mind. And that's what I'll say there. Wingman Ted, any thoughts about OSU softball and the run the Lady Buckeyes are on? I thought I saw here recently that Ohio State softball completed its first ever sweep of the team up north. So that's exciting. I don't necessarily know a ton of what's going on with the softball team, Wingman Ted. It's just kind of a thing of with covering the team and the portal and everything else, you only have so much capacity. I know that the baseball team doesn't appear to be getting it done this year, which I have a lot of friends who do this job in SEC country for teams in the SEC, and they're always like, well, why doesn't Ohio State have anything worth a darn on baseball? I'm like, I remember when under Bob Todd, when Ohio State had some really good baseball teams and got to the Super Regional, would win the first game of the Super Regional and then would lose the next two, only not to get to Omaha. So it's not like we've not seen success on the baseball side. I don't know as much about, the softball side. I've started covering, at least paying attention a little bit more to women's basketball. So that has kind of become my fourth sport behind football, men's basketball, and men's hockey. Well, maybe fifth, because women's hockey has done such a great job under Coach Muzz. Unfortunately, they lost in the championship game to Wisconsin. A couple controversial calls in that game that didn't sit well with me. But what do I know? I was actually at Value City Arena waiting to go out and cover the Ohio State Tennessee women's basketball game. Matt says that Logan George will be a standout player. I agree. I think that it's, getting as much of a rotation out there as you can. Obviously, Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry are probably your ones right now, but ones and starters don't necessarily always equate. Even who gets the most, snaps in the game doesn't always equate. I think that Ohio State would like to have 4 starting defensive ends, and they're just kind of interchangeable. So, what do you get there? I mean, you sit there, you look at the interior line. I mean, obviously, Edric Houston has done a good job of sliding inside. I mean, with Caden McDonald, there never was a question of what position he was going to play. I mean, he is your run stuffing one tech. Talking to another friend who was like, he just looks like he's a little out of shape. I'm like, He's a sumo wrestler. That is his job. I mean, you don't want to be. I mean, I'm not going to be your one tech. I'm out of shape. I'm not big enough to be a one. But I would need to put on about 60 pounds to be a one, and I need to lose about 60 pounds to be happy. So I think Logan George definitely is going to be somebody that is going to demand with his actions, not with his voice, with his actions is going to demand playing time. Matt says, wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State will have a top 5 defense with Matt Patricia. We'll see. What does D tackle look like? That is, I mean, obviously the fact that Ryan Day kind of, singled out that group of, we kind of have to get better. We have to evaluate, leads me to believe that through the 15 practices that it did not meet expectations. Now, I also understand that expectations probably were set very high. You're the returning national champions. And while a lot of you players had small or no on-field roles during the last season, we're not going to lower our expectations. So if they can get to where they're comfortable with 4 or 5 on D tackle, I think they could be really good. I think they could be really, really good. I mean, obviously, you're going to miss players like Lathan Ransom. You're going to miss players like Denzel Burke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm not even going to get into everybody they're going to miss on the defensive line. You all know the names. So I'm going to say, if you were asking me to put money on something, I would say top 10, top 5. It quite possibly, but I think they need to show me something first. Let me keep going through here. Ryan Day, championship beard. Kevin, I hope you are well. I'm doing the best that I can. It's never, nothing is ever, straightforward or easy, but that I'm not the only one that has to sit there and figure out how to, get up and figure everything out and go through all of, the rigors of a day. Mika, love you, Kevin, buddy. I'm going to get here. Does Justin Terry get a look? Are you talking the offensive tackle from West Virginia? I mean, they are bringing in some O-linemen on portal looks. So, and here's the thing, and then I will get to Chad, and then I'll get to Wrestlemania, and then if we have any super chats that keep me here, we'll do that. I'm going to try and set a hard off time by 12:30. We'll see. There have been misses for Ohio State on offensive line. And again, I just praised Justin Fry earlier. There have been some misses, for one reason or another. And speaking of Ohio State offensive line, I want to send prayers out to Avery Henry, who went to social media yesterday to say that things got that they found a mass or something. I'm not exactly sure there, but that he was going to be undergoing surgery today, like a 4 to 5 hour procedure. He's very strong in his faith, and still understands that everything out there is according to a master plan. So just want to kind of give a moment to Avery Henry and wish him a successful procedure and a successful recovery and F cancer. So we got that. So, back to offensive line, you kind of have some misses there. So you need to fill things in. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bring in a 1-year rental. I think Ohio State certainly not only has its starting 5, probably feels good with 7 or 8. But if you can go out there and get somebody who has 2 or 3 years of eligibility left, and you can sit there, Josh Simmons had 2 years of eligibility. They brought him in, and then it was a second year, and he was much better in the second year. And fill in some of the depth pieces. I think that's very important. And I don't know Justin Terry other than I just know the name. I mean, obviously from Pickerington, he's still a young guy, 6'5", 338 according to the 247 profile right now. give him a look and see. We will do more on the portal and everything else. I have not had a chance to necessarily get through all of that. All right, I got two questions. Chad, you're next after I hit this Odysseus really quick. Does Will Howard get drafted in the first round? I'm going to say no. NFL personnel has some concerns. You know, he doesn't necessarily have the greatest velocity on his throws. I think that, I was watching NFL Network yesterday and listening to one of their guys kind of go through some of the stuff. Will Howard is a winner. I think Will Howard is somebody who's going to have a long career in the NFL, probably more as a 2 than a 1. Just is he going to be able to? Can you fine tune what he's doing to get more velo on those throws? I don't know. I mean, you don't want to tinker too much and ruin somebody. Hey, you know what? I fixed my slice on my golf swing, but I only drive at 185 now. You gotta figure some of these things out. But again, I think that he is, you're going to have to go I think he's going to be third round. Odysseus, I'm not going to punch this one up because I'm getting to Chad's next. Plenty of velocity during CFP. They did not watch the CFP. His the second touchdown in the Rose Bowl against Oregon could have been driven through a little bit more. I mean, I do believe that there are certain throws that are probably not in his bag. And I'm a big Will Howard fan. I'm not allowed to necessarily get completely on the bandwagon in the bag for anybody and be like, I'm just, waving the banner, but it's hard not to like Will Howard. I want to see Will Howard be successful. I mean, it is such a great story. There's at least a book in there. I probably shouldn't mention that. I'm sure other people are already writing it. There's a book in there. So I want to see him be successful, but I have talked to some NFL people myself, and they've all talked that, that the arm strength is maybe, 80% of what it needs to be, and that just, he does throw, a couple of wounded ducks. So take it for what it's worth. Chad, host of the best damn pod in the land, I'm guessing, or podcast. I'm great at figuring out acronyms. An interesting blurb about Atkinson. His numbers last year more or less equate to Kenyatta and Curry's career numbers combined. Atkinson's a dude. You got to remember that Kenyatta and Curry have not been able to put up. They've been the other two starters. And I understand you're saying them combined career. Sometimes you just kind of get locked in behind certain guys. And certainly last year, the year that JT and Jack had, it was just going to be really difficult to do stuff. And I think that the thing is with Atkinson is, can Ohio State still create enough of a rush to allow Atkinson to eat? And I think they can. And I think they can. A little wrestling, and I'll watch the numbers plummet or go up. I don't know. And then maybe we finish off with a couple of football thoughts or whatever. Who here watched Wrestlemania? I am not as big of a wrestling person as I used to be, but I can really admire the athleticism. And with them being on Peacock now, the pay-per-views, you're not having to pay $39.95, or I'm already getting Peacock because of Big Ten programming being over there. So to me, the $4.99 a month, whatever it is, $5.37 after tax, is a sunk cost. I'm not thinking about it. And, I can put on Wrestlemania. So I really enjoyed that. I will say this, and I'm not just saying it because Mika, one of my favorite females in the world, is here. WWE's women's wrestling division right now is stronger than ever. I saw some great matches. The Io Sky match was amazing. The Io Sky match with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley was amazing. And you sit there and you look. I didn't necessarily think that the match with Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte Flair. I saw a lot of botches. I saw a lot of botched spots in there. It looked like at some points they were counting steps. It's real because you saw the knot on Tiffany Stratton's head after it, and she had a bit of a bloody mouth. There was concern that she chipped a tooth. Mika's saying it's $7.99 a month now for Peacock. I've got to get a handle on all my damn streaming services. Really, what I got to do is get rid of cable. My DirecTV is up to $200 a month. I don't have $200. So I got to figure that one out. But women's wrestling, and then of course, I think one of the big matches that was really exciting as well was with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez going against Lyra Valkyria, and Becky Lynch came back, and she's a heel now, and that was pretty cool as well. I should have probably said as well that if you're planning on going and watching WrestleMania because you haven't watched it, you should probably tune out because I'm absolutely going to spoil it. I'm not going to talk about Andor. Andor, you've had 15 hours to watch it. That's not enough. You've had all damn weekend to watch WrestleMania. I'm not going to talk about every match. Oh, and Jade Cargill and Naomi. And I'm a big Jade Cargill fan. She terrifies me. I think she is just absolutely intimidating. Mika says YouTube TV. I hear good things. I hear bad things. I mean, every one of them has its positives and its negatives. And YouTube TV had a couple of carriage disputes and everything else. I mean, so is DirecTV. So I don't know. Go through some of theirs. I did not like the U.S. Championship match. Jacob Fatu beat LA Knight. I think Fatu is a star. I think he is a star, but I was not happy about seeing LA Knight. I think they could get a little bit more run out of LA Knight. They could have at least gotten it to SummerSlam. What else? Jey Uso defeating Gunter was terrible. I'm not a big Jey Uso fan. I think he's a good guy, but I don't know. I mean, unless they were really setting up something for the bloodline angle, I feel it was a wasted opportunity. I don't know what you're going to do with Gunter now because Gunter doesn't necessarily have a ton of charisma. I mean, I think Gunter used to be kind of chunky, and then he toned up, and now he's going chunky again. He reminds me of me. The Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, CM Punk match. I want to be a Paul Heyman guy. I want him to be my advisor. That was great with a couple of double crosses in it. I really enjoyed that. The Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest. If you don't follow Drew McIntyre, you need to enjoy wrestling. If you don't enjoy wrestling, just disregard this. But Drew McIntyre is a fantastic follow on Twitter. I'm just going to say it. He is a fantastic follow. He took a in-match selfie with Damian Priest, like on the ground during his match. I really thought that was hilarious. Randy Orton defeated Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is the champion of TNA. No, not that TNA. Total Nonstop Action, I believe, is what the acronym is for. I felt like it was a little bit of a squash match, and a squash match means that you bring somebody out and you squash them. You beat them in like a minute, 2 minutes. It's supposed to put the winner over. It's supposed to show just how dominating they are. You know, I heard an interview with Joe Hendry after the fact, and he's like, I don't see it as that. I ran some of my offense. I didn't have a problem with it. I felt that it was a misspot to not get Rusev in there. But then what are you going to do at that point? If Rusev beats Orton, you weaken Orton. If Rusev comes in and gets beat by Orton, you start Rusev off weak. I mean, it needed to be something where if you did that, it would have to be like a double DQ or something like that, just to start a beef between them, start a program between them. And then the Rhodes and Cena match. Oh, did people were pissed about that. The Rock, I'm not going to go in and try and set the whole backstory. The Rock got John Cena to become a villain for the first time in his 20-year career or whatever. And that really was able to put CM Punk over, or I'm sorry, to put Cody Rhodes over. Rhodes ends up losing to Cena. You get the big pop at the end for Cena, winning it. You've really weakened Cody at this point. I don't know what the plan is. I mean, obviously, I think what it's going to be is Cena retires at the end of the year. Once that happens, I think Rhodes takes the belt off of him at the end. I think that Cena has his redemption and goes off into the sunset as the hero to grant all the Make-A-Wish wishes for the sick kids and everything else. I know he's enjoying his run as a heel right now. It has to be tough to be a face, a baby face, a good guy for 20 years. I know that I've been the baby face on Buckeye Huddle with Tom and Tony, a couple of heels for a couple of years now, and I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted by that. Let me tell you. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good show, but I felt that the Monday Night Raw afterward was great. But we'll talk more wrestling if people want to. But I promised somebody I would talk wrestling. So there you go. NFL draft starts tomorrow on Thursday, the 24th. Certainly going to be watching that. We're going to go live again on the 25th. Who are we kidding? We're going live, and we'll figure it out. It'll probably be under the Big Me Kickoff, unless Tom or Tony wants to buddy up and jump in the show. And if they want to do that, we'll put it under one of their brands. But the best way to find out when we are going on the air is by going to youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle and subscribing to the channel. Don't cost nothing. Hit that bell, hit the thumbs up. All of that will help you be notified. Now, I'm the first one to admit the notification system on YouTube is questionable sometimes. You're sometimes just not going to get alerted. It is what it is. But what you should do is become a member at BuckeyeHuddle.com. I always try to announce when I'm going to do a show because I'm not a daily show. With Tom and Tony, their daily shows, you're getting a show in season 7 days a week on Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, out of season like 5 days a week. I think you get 5 days a week on Buckeye Weekly. Their schedule. My schedule is kind of all over the place, whatever the heck I'm doing. So sign up for Buckeye Huddle. Get all the team coverage, Tom, Tony, myself, recruiting coverage from Mark Givler, X's and O's from Ross Fulton and his team of experts. All of that, plus the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse Columbus. By far the most chill and awesome community in all of the Ohio State sports landscape out there. You can get action talking to us really at all sorts of different times. I mean, we all got to sleep at some point, but you can get us there, especially when we're not having a show or something to that nature. Wingman Tez says, I'm not the baby face of Buckeye Huddle. Obviously, I'm the diva. How do I downvote you? I am the baby face. I really am. I am the John Cena. You can't see me. I am not the diva. They've done away with the divas division. They used to have a bunch of, beautiful models out there. Now they have a bunch of beautiful wrestlers out there that are just, dominating. And not everybody is of the same level. I mean, there are still some that probably should be at NXT, but it is what it is. Odysseus says, Tom is the ultimate heel. Thank you. I'm glad you recognize these adverse situations I have to work under. Mika Hanna, national champions. We building a dynasty. Thanks, Kevin. Buddy, love you, buddy. And love you too, Mika. Belated happy birthday. Odysseus, biggest surprise draft pick on Thursday. To me or to everybody else, I would be surprised if Jackson Dart is a first-round pick, the Ole Miss quarterback. I would be very surprised. I'm not in love with his game. He's a turnover machine. I don't know. I was actually reading a mock draft as I was getting into the room to start the show, and I retained nothing. So we will talk about that on Friday, who my biggest surprise was on round one. Matt says, remember Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan? That's probably the last time I've watched wrestling. I'm 60 years old. I'm 53, and I have a lot of friends who are my age or older who watch it as well. Now, it isn't like I'm not eating it with my, my sugary cereal on Saturday morning or anything like that, but it's something to have on. Now, will I watch SmackDown on Friday? No. Will I watch Raw on Monday? Probably not. Will I watch the next pay-per-view? Yes. Do I read the dirt sheets every so often so I know what's going on? I do. And it's a fun diversion. It's a fun diversion and something to do. And what else am I going to watch? I can't get into any shows right now other than Andor, which I love. I just finished Squid Game season 2, the first half of it. The second half comes out in late May. I was all into Cobra Kai, and now I can't get into this whole last season because it's just so cheesy. I think I had a personality change or something, so I don't know. Let's just keep going here. Mika says we break the draft record. That's, I think that's going to be difficult. I think you're going to see a couple of guys going the undrafted free agent route, but I think we're going to see a really good draft for the Buckeyes. And Doug Shepard Sr., I've been driving, so I can't respond. If I didn't like Kevin so much, I would have switched off over for wrestling talk. Again, not going to be a regular feature. It's WrestleMania. It's the biggest spectacle in all of sports entertainment. Not going to do it after SummerSlam. I'm not going to do it after Money in the Bank or anything like that. I am over WrestleMania because of what it is. And I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about. I haven't done a live show in a long time. I thought I'd have a party and nobody would come. I had to make sure I had something to talk about. I had to get to a half hour because I have to. I'm not doing a live show that is less than 30 minutes on Big Me Kickoff. So there you go. Final question, unless we get a super chat. I could see G. Scott with the final pick to break the record. You see, he's somebody he did not get invited to the Combine. I think he did. I think he did a decent job at Ohio State's Pro Day. I didn't go to Pro Day. Somebody's talking about Josh Fryer after Wingman Ted asked who's the last Buckeye drafted. Fryer wasn't there either at the Combine. At some point, I think they're just, I think that, remember the year that the team up north sent like 19 players to the draft and like 11 got drafted, or to the Combine and 11 got drafted. I think they want to try and tighten those things up, but I felt that G and Josh both had done enough to need that to go to the Combine. But it kind of is what it is. But that would be something if he were the last pick, quote unquote, Mr. Irrelevant. There is a parade in Newport Beach, California, a trip to Disney, and some other, trinkets and honors bestowed upon the last draft pick of the draft, if you want to be that guy. But we have gone a little bit over 12:30, but not to the point that that I'm super concerned. So I want to thank everybody for joining me here on the Big Me Kickoff. We will be back on Friday, probably at our normal time of 2 p.m. But again, join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. I will post on there when we were doing it. I will set up the show, use the alert system here on YouTube.com. Subscribe to the channel, thumbs up, hit the bell. I will be very disappointed if after the show I go into our analytics and I don't have at least 70 thumbs up. So get us there. You can do it. Doesn't cost anything. And, appreciate you guys making this show possible. You guys are the best. And I will talk to you all on Friday.